You're listening to Winnipeg's Classic 107. My name is Simon Rusnak. For students and teachers alike, music lessons have been a little different the past few months. To tell us more, we've reached MRMTA President Evangeline Keeley and Manitoba Registered Music Teachers Association past President Leanne Hiebert. Hello to you both.
Good morning,
Hello.
Simon.
Well, it's great to see you both again. Evangeline, I'd like to begin with you. Obviously, a lot has changed since we last spoke back in February. Tell me about the past few months and what you've been hearing from music teachers.
Well, like everyone else, when COVID hit in March, it was a little chaotic to try to figure out exactly how to proceed. Leanne was still the president at that point, but we were conferring quite often about guidelines that we could present to our teacher members and to try to help them navigate all the sudden changes. A lot of teachers have gone online. I think in the spring, for me personally, it felt very daunting, caused a lot of anxiety personally to go ahead with that kind of lesson because I was not familiar with that. We have teachers who have been doing online lessons either regularly or periodically. So for them, it was probably a little less traumatic.
Can we talk a little bit more about that pivot at the beginning of the pandemic when we in Manitoba, like so many parts of the world, entered the full lockdown? Of course, music lessons weren't happening in person, but they did continue online, like you alluded to, making the switch to virtual lessons. Why do you think it was important to keep the music and the lessons going?
Well, I had one parent say to me that this was something, having a lesson on a particular day was something that defined the week for them. So that's important. And that also the same parent said, this is how my children are getting some music in their lives at this point. They weren't getting any through school online kind of learning. So that's important. And music is a very healing art. You can release a lot of emotion and stress through music. And in these particular days, I think that is very helpful.
Absolutely. Leanne, I want to bring you into the conversation. Just this past week, broader restrictions came into effect for the Winnipeg Metropolitan Health Region. And in addition to other sectors, this had a direct effect on music education within the school system. But can you just clarify for listeners, MRMTA members aren't directly affected by those curriculum changes, right?
No, correct. We can still, because we work one-on-one and depending on each individual teacher's situation, whether they choose to combine an online teaching schedule as well as a bit of in-person schedule, we can still go ahead and do it in a safe way as long as we're one-on-one, 6 feet apart, keeping masks on when we can, and especially when in close contact. And if we follow those Manitoba health guidelines, we can keep that music going with these kids, which is so important for them. Everyone, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely it is. But I mean, the thing that I was kind of curious about is, for those teachers, how they're making the decision whether or not to take those lessons online or perhaps return to online. Maybe they've kept going. I'm just wondering if, wind instrument lessons are still happening in person or singing lessons versus piano or drum lessons, let's say, that kind
Yeah.
of changes things, right?
I think our vocal teachers are teaching online and I haven't talked to a lot of wind teachers, but I presume they are doing mostly online as well. The piano is probably the one instrument where we can do a bit of in person and keep that distance and go on 2 keyboards, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been following a lot of friends who are music teachers, and they've been talking about the dreaded Zoom lag and the things that we're finding with these virtual rehearsals. But like you're both saying, very important to keep the music alive. And I mean, we've heard a lot about the challenges and the difficulties that this pandemic has presented. But I want to kind of flip things a little bit to the positive now. I understand that some workshops have been taking place, Evangeline, online workshops with presenters from Florida and New York. Is that right?
That is correct. So in September, we presented an online workshop about teaching online. And the presenter is a Canadian who's teaching in Florida. And so she joined us from Florida to do this workshop. We had about a dozen members, I think, who came into it was on Zoom. came into that workshop. And then just a couple of weeks ago, we were able to present a master class. This was originally scheduled for the spring through Virtual C Concerts with Thomas Sawyer. And of course, he was not able to come to Winnipeg in person at that time. So we were able to arrange with him to do this master class from his home in New York City.
Oh, isn't that fantastic? Some renowned talent who may perhaps come to Winnipeg or perhaps not. And I mean, that's just it. I mean, we're finding new ways to keep connected, to keep engaged, and to kind of continue that creativity going. I'm just curious from a numbers perspective. I don't know if you've seen this or anything definitively, but have you noticed an influx of people interested in music lessons in the midst of the pandemic?
Uh, I'm going to ask Leanne if she has info on that. I'm not sure I do really. Sorry.
Well, I think it has certainly opened a lot of options, for people who perhaps don't have time to go out to dedicate an evening to go out to a music lesson and travel. It certainly cuts down on some of the time restrictions, and you can do it from your own home. You can contact, teachers all over the world to have lessons. I know one flute student who is having lessons with a teacher down in New York. It's amazing the options that are open to us. So I think people are
Yeah, no,
able to do that. Yeah.
I would say the same thing. I mean, I think that people, as you were saying, if they're not going out and not socializing, they might have more time and they want to keep connected in a new way. So an instrument is a great way of doing that. And of course, the MRMTA can help with finding the perfect instructor for those people who are interested in picking up an instrument. I want to thank you both so much for taking the time to chat with us at Classic 107 today.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so much.
Simon.
Manitoba Registered Music Teachers Association President Evangeline Keeley and MRMTA Past President Leanne Hiebert. You can, of course, find more details over on mrmta.org or on classic107.com.